Well, we're in the middle of a polar vortex, so I thought I'd do a little ice fishing. Let's go. All right, I made it. So I'm gonna be fishing today on a lake. I'm gonna be really, really careful. I have my ice picks with me, and I'm gonna just set off about shore, maybe 100, 200 meters or so. Not very far, there's lots of fish around here. So one thing that I have to do is get out on the ice, and I'm gonna test it first just to make sure it's deep enough. I'll show you what concerns me just to the left of me. So you can see over here, someone has a dock and they've got a bubbler going so that there's no ice damage to the dock, but that makes the ice incredibly unstable and very, very thin. So I'm gonna go out and check the ice and just make sure everything's safe where I wanna go. I'm gonna head out this way, so I'll stay as far away as I can from that area where the ice is thin, and we'll set up my tent. All right, so here's my, my test drill here just off the dock. We're probably looking at about 8 inches there, at least 8 to 12. The ice has a little bit of grayness to it, so it's not a sturdy ice. It's not like that crystal ice that some people get that's nice and clear. So I'm good to go to venture out. I like to go out at least when there's about 4 inches of ice down there, just for walking, me and the sled. So I'm going to head straight out, and I've got my safety gear right here. So you can see strapped to my arms here, I've got my ice picks if I was ever to go in the ice. These release quickly and I can kind of crawl up on the ice if I need to. So these are nice and sturdy. I picked these up at a yard sale actually for $1, so can't beat that. And they have like a little cord that goes through my coat, kind of like when you're a kid holding on your mittens. It's got one for each side. Just show you my sled. So it's the same one from last year. Got my Freybill tent in there, but you can see what I've done is I've put on a new line. I've braided some new paracord, and this is sort of an elk-hide waist strap, so I can kind of put it around my shoulder or my waist, or even across the top of my forehead, I guess, to haul this. I've got a few extra little ties on there to hold everything on. So this is a slick little sled, helps me get where I need to go. Going really far away from that dock, that really sketches me out. I hate when people do that with the bubblers out there. I realize you got to protect your investment, but that's like way dangerous for people that go out on the ice. Not to mention snowmobilers that come across here in the night and they don't see that. Boom, in the water. Not very good. So if you do that, please put up flags, notifications for people to know where it is, especially at nighttime. Well, I got the tent set up behind me, and let me tell you, that was no fun at all. The winds are gusting up to 25 kilometers an hour, and you can imagine what it's like trying to put that thing up. Anyways, but I've got it anchored down into the ice, and I'm just going to drill the hole. There she goes. Moly. Well, that did the trick. Ice is a lot deeper out here, obviously, than closer to the dock. So, wow, that was a bit of a workout. Of course, I'm using my more ice auger. Struggling a little bit at the start to get it going, and I realized my handle froze down. So I was like, why isn't this turning? It's just got all iced up because I had laid it down in the snow when I was setting up the tent. Yeah, I like this little ice auger. It does a good job. Of course, it has like it's from Sweden. It's a Swede bore, and it's got really, really sharp blades. Really, really sharp blades on the end of it that can be replaced if need be. But no, I'm thrilled with it. So I'm going to scoop out the hole, and we'll get started with our fishing. A lot of ice chips in here, that's for sure. Oh yeah, that's at least 2 feet deep in there. 18 inches, maybe 20 inches. Not quite 2 feet, but just about. So there's one thing I'm going to get set up in here first before I drop my line, and that's this little candle here that Muskrat Jim recommended. He saw my winter camping video and noticed that there's a lot of condensation in the tent and it wasn't ventilating very well, and he recommended this UCO candle. So what it is you pop it open like that, and inside there's actually a candle, and it gives off a nice little bit of heat and just kind of helps with the condensation that builds in a tent, you know, when you're kind of enclosed, especially with this one where I'm keeping it fairly sealed because the wind is really high, and it's kind of nice actually to be out of the wind. So the candle also comes with a little shield for the back of it so that it basically can reflect some heat. And obviously there's a little bit of there's a chain on it so I can hang it here in the tent. So I'm going to get this fired up so it'll kick off a little bit of light and maybe a little bit of heat. Not to warm the place, but just actually to get rid of some of the condensation. There we go. Perfect. Just going to let it do its thing. Apparently these candles last for about 9 hours. And you can get even the beeswax candles version of them. I got it at Mountain Equipment Co-op. You can see just how cold it is here in the tent. But you know what? Out of the wind, it's not bad. Probably about minus 15, minus 13, minus 15. But in the wind, it's literally today it's close to minus 28 Celsius with the wind chill. So really happy to be tucked away in here. So for fishing gear, I want to show you guys what I'll be using today is some of my favorite fishing lures for ice fishing. They're called the slab grabbers, and they're by McGathy's. And these are awesome because you really don't need bait. You don't have to put bait on these. The little colored tips on the end of the hook are enough to attract the fish in. I've got a yellow one. I've got also today I've got a red one. And I think I got an orange one in there as well. So, but sometimes if you're tempted like I am, I'll put on like a wax worm or something like that. And these ones I have freeze-dried ones, and I also have these ones Ice Sense. They're sort of scented wax worms, and they smell awful, but it's like fish food basically. So these guys basically, you know, if you felt tempted, you could stick one on the lure if you wanted to. You don't have to, but sometimes this just sweetens the deal. Oh, they're kind of attached to each other. But sometimes this just sweetens the deal, you know, to get a fish to bite these little tiny wax worms or grubs. So let's get all settled up and ready to go. I put a steel lead on here because there's quite a lot of pike actually just close to shore. They cruise around looking for the perch that are around here and the sunfish. So I do catch quite a lot of pike here in the winter. So be prepared. Put a steel leader on there, or you'll be sad. So I've had really good luck with the red lures, so I'm going to try that first. Let's try without bait on, just like they advertise, and we'll see what we can do. And I can always put on a little bit of a wax worm or whatever. Well, I've got my tip up set up for a little bit here because I want to make some lunch. So I brought some bannock with me again. Some of you were asking what bannock is, and it's basically a bread made out of flour, baking powder, and I put a little bit of sugar in it. So basically I use like, I don't know, like a teaspoon of sugar, a cup of flour, and about a tablespoon of baking powder. Mix it together with just enough water to make like a nice dough. And I'll separate it into like, you know, littler pieces, I guess, if I want to just have smaller ones like when I'm out here. Alright, so I just got my little gas stove that I used my last cook out there, the Optimus. Seemed to work pretty good. The only thing is that the bottom freezes up. I put on my little foamy so the gas doesn't freeze up and stops cooking kind of thing. Whew. Well, I'll be. That's kicking off some nice heat in here. A little frying pan. Smaller one than last time. I learned from my last oil disaster, and I have a nice little screw top Nalgene bottle here for the oil. Let me tell you, that was a mess to clean up. That wind is howling, so it's nice to have the little heater on in here. So I got my bannock here in my little plastic bag again. I got wax paper in between them so they don't get stuck. Take a look at that. I just flipped it nice and golden brown. Just using a little bit of oil there to pan fry it in. You can use a bit of butter or whatever. It's quick and easy and nice and filling. Okay, it's all done. Let me give it a try. Just what I need. Carbs and fat on a day like today. Boy, it's cool. So you want to be careful and not get too low in the calorie department. Oils and carbs obviously give you a lot of energy. Hoping to get a fish today. We'll see if that happens. I'm ready to take action and cook it up for lunch if I do. Look how steamy that bannock is. You know, that's the one thing with ice fishing is you're kind of relegated to one spot. I mean, I know some people drill numerous holes and kind of go between them. But on a day like today when the wind is really high, I'm really not keen on packing up and dragging this someplace else. So I'm just going to sit here and have some fun and enjoy the day. You know, it's not always about catching fish all the time. You know, it's great when you catch them, but that's not always the case. I know a lot of high-action fishing TV shows and stuff like that. You know, you're led to believe that that's always what happens, you know, is that, you know, fish are always on the line and you're hauling all kinds of stuff in, but that's not always the case. Depends obviously on weather, location, and lures that you're using and things like that. So, and skill of the operator. So, yeah, so I mean today, coming out to the ice fishing hut, you know, I just want to sit here and enjoy myself. It's kind of like my meditation, you know, sit out here and ponder life. I don't know what you guys do to meditate, but for me, I go into the woods or just come out here and just relax, you know. So it's good to get out of the house on a really cold day. You know, it's easy to sort of sit inside, watch a movie, you know, breathe indoor air. But I find I'm the healthiest, and the winters that I'm the healthiest are the ones where I'm actually outside getting fresh air. I remember one year, a few years ago, I didn't get the flu or cold. It was like perfect, and it was because I was outside every day. I was going for 10-kilometer walks and doing all kinds of stuff. And then when I stayed inside more, I found that I was more prone to getting colds and flus and things like that. So it's always good to get out and get a change of the air in your lungs. You know, these little stoves do a pretty good job, and they pack up really small. The only, you know, drawback is that you have to kind of buy these little gas tanks for them, but you get a lot of good use out of them. And what you can do to tell on some of these if they're full or empty is you can kind of weigh them before and then during use to make sure you've got enough gas for another trip. So you can get just like one of those little food scales. Some of them also have marks on the side where you know, it tells you if you float it in a bucket of water how much gas is left in there. So that's kind of a cool idea. They work really well, except in this cold weather. I find they, you know, they tend to freeze up. They're pretty small, and I have to kind of shake them a little bit to kind of get the gas to come out. But I do find it's better if I put it on like a little mat or, you know, piece of wood or something like that, just to kind of insulate a little bit from the ground. I tend to get a little bit more, a little bit less freeze up rather with these guys. So it's neat, you know, you can kind of fold it up and put it away in your pack, and it's very light, you know, and especially if you can't, you know, can't start a fire here on the ice or in your tent, or if you're in a woodland where, you know, you're not allowed to have a fire, this is a great option to carry one of these little stoves. So like I said, I picked this up a little bit before Christmas. I've used it a few times now, and I'm very happy with it. It works, and it's light. My friend Birch that you guys met on the camping trip, she gave me this little pouch. So this is what I, you know, keep my little Optimus kit in here. I've got a lighter in here. Everything fits nicely in here. I'm really trying to organize my outdoor gear. I've got a little a cabinet that has these little wicker baskets that go in it, and I'm sort of organizing it like knives and like, you know, GPS unit, my personal location beacon, you know, my foraging stuff, that kind of thing. So I'm trying to organize everything so I can find it instead of keeping it in random locations in the house. I think it's a better idea to do it that way. So I want to also create little pouches for certain activities, you know, like my foraging pouch, you know, I can take that. So I've got that little bag there that holds my stove, that kind of thing. So I'm trying to brainstorm different ways to organize my gear so I can just grab and go and not have to like hunt around for everything. So yeah, that'll be my project for the new year. So it's pretty slow here today. I mean, it's sort of mid-afternoon, so they probably haven't come cruising by the shoreline just yet for food. But I want to talk a bit about ice safety. A lot of people you hear every year go through the ice or have a horrible accident in relation to ice when they're ice fishing or just heading out, snowshoeing or, cross-country skiing along the shoreline or something. So be really, really safe. Definitely you want to know how to rescue yourself if you ever go through the ice. So there's lots of good videos about that on YouTube. I'll put a link down below to a video that I watched about someone, training for, ice safety and, how they went through the ice on purpose. And how to deal with the cold shock and how to get out of a real pickle. So basically really key is staying calm, and having these ice picks is paramount to help you get out, because you're just going to be clawing at the ice and have a really hard time getting out. And always, if you go in, to make sure that you're crawling back towards the shore the direction that you came in, because that's most likely the strongest ice around. If you start going other places, it's probably thinner, obviously, because that's where you went in. Don't go out on the ice, obviously, unless there's really good quality ice. At least 4 inches, I'd say, for going out on foot. I like to play it really, really safe, and that's for walking out. Obviously, if you're looking at driving out, you're looking at about 12 inches of clear ice. Double everything, basically, if you've got gray, slushy ice or freeze-thaw cycles and terrible ice. Even just up here, there's an event a couple weekends ago where people were testing the ice very carefully. There's about 20 inches, 24 inches in one location. Thought everything was okay. Took a truck out onto the ice because, 24 inches, why not? Looks good. But it actually went in just off shoreline. Some of the ice was destabilized and the truck went in. Thankfully, people, they got out of the truck. They survived. But that scared everybody because the people that were in the truck had been out on the ice on trucks this time of year for, 15, 20 years. They're very used to this area, very used to the ice. But there was a patch of ice. It was unstable by the shore. Didn't realize it had tested ice in and around the area. It was about, 20 inches or so. Totally safe to drive on. But then there was a patch that wasn't safe, and that could have been a fatal mistake to make. So one thing to know is ice is never safe. And I'm going to repeat that. Ice is never safe. You can take as many precautions as you can. It's still risky to go out on the ice. You never know if there's underwater springs or, someone's got like a bubbler out there. The ice has been thinned due to all the motion of the open water. And the other thing too, is there wildlife around? Sometimes beavers go under the ice and they create very unstable ice conditions. And especially some of these, backwoods lakes and stuff like that and rivers can be incredibly dangerous. So just know the risks that you're taking when you go out on the ice. You can be as careful as you can be, and that's really all you can do, is be as safe as you can be. But just know that things can happen, and know how to get yourself out of a bad situation if it occurs. What I've been sitting on is this Cabela's stool. It's pretty good. It's a little tripod there. It's very light. Has a little gear pouch here at the bottom, so you can kind of sit on it this way, or like a saddle, I guess. But really light, very comfortable. I wasn't convinced it would be great because it doesn't have a back on it, but it does the job. It's pretty good. Of course, I put my feet on a little foamy there because I don't like putting my feet right up against the snow. I find it pretty cold. So, yeah, I'm liking it. Well, a little UCO candle lantern provides a lot of light. But in terms of the condensation in the tent, as you can see, it doesn't do a great job in this side's tent. There's a lot of condensation that's frozen on the sides of the tent. Also, the window's pretty iced up. I'm going to have to give it a try when I'm back out in the Rio Grande winter camping tent. Obviously, this tent is quite a big size, so it's trapping a lot of moisture. So maybe it's a little bit too much for the small little candle. I know a few say it really helps out a lot, when they're doing some winter camping, to put in their, like, just a regular size tent, for like a 2-person tent. So I'll have to give it a try. But as for using it here in the ice fishing hut, the Freybill, it's sort of not doing the job. Let's pour some hot chocolate. Ooh. Spill it all over myself. That hits the spot. We do all kinds of things to keep warm in these tents. Sorry, all the steam. Yeah, when it's slow in here, nothing to do but eat and have some warm drinks. I just want to show you the action on that lure. Let's bring it up close so you can see. So it sort of flutters. Falls flat and then it kind of flutters and looks like a dying minnow. It's all in the presentation, of course. Look at that nice ice. Beautiful. Love taking a look at those layers. So the tent I'm using is the Bill HQ100, and I really like it. It's a 2-person tent. It's a bit tricky to set up for 1 person, especially if it's really windy out, but the sides just pop out and it pops out onto the ice. As you can see here, I've got it anchored really solidly into the ice. If I didn't do that, it would totally blow away today. As you can see, it's got vents right here and it's got windows. You can take out these little plastic windows if you want. It's nice and warm. It's nice and warm in here. Just got to remember to step over. There's a little lip by the door, and if you don't, you will trip and fall into the tent. Inside the Bill, you can see little windows there. I can close these up if I don't want the light, like that. Some Velcro, or open them right up. There's a few gear pouches, sort of storing some gloves and stuff like that. So it's actually surprisingly warm here in the tent. With that little candle actually kicked off a fair bit of heat, because I was like, oh, it's not too bad in here. Went outside and oh my gosh, it was like freezing cold and the wind really whipped up. So it's quite snug in here. Well, I didn't get any fish today, but I had a nice cookout, did a little bit of a gear review, and enjoyed chatting with you guys. I hope you guys have a good week as always. Take care.